Haha! So I have my hands on the brand new Sony G Master 24-70 2.8 version 2 lens. Hello, welcome to Silver Paw Studio. You might remember the What's in My Bag video from this year, earlier this year, and I said I have a missing lens right here. I have my beloved 70-200, love this, use this lens almost all the time. And then on the other end, I have the Tamron 17-28 wider angle, and I am missing that middle lens. And you might recall even further back, I rented the Sony 24-70 and the Tamron 28-75. And I did a comparison video. And at the time, I thought it was more worthwhile to buy the Tamron 28-75 2.8 lens. And I used that lens for a little while until I ran into the same problem over and over. And that was it just could not focus in a little bit lower light. I'm not talking dark, just a tiny bit lower light. And it just was so frustrating that I ended up selling that lens. I've been operating with just these two lenses for my studio, which is fine. This lens has actually been great. I use it on video a lot. I can put this on my gimbal and shoot almost anything for clients. It also is really good for those wider shots. Maybe the dog is small and the environment's big, or you get the bobblehead look, or if you just want to look straight down and really get the big eyes looking up at you, this is great. My workhorse is awesome. This is the version 1, but I'm finding recently that I really need that middle lens. And here's why. What I have found is when I'm in tighter spaces. Now, this studio is only about 20 feet long, and when I set up my backdrop, I have to be all the way. There's a little door there that goes into a kitchenette. I have to be sitting in the kitchen to use this lens if there's more than one dog. And so that's a little extreme. So here in the studio, I have limitations. Now, when I go to clients' homes, I'll often go to clients' homes for a variety of reasons, and we don't have this much space in most people's homes. So I'm either finding I'm using a really wide angle lens and having to crop severely or make sure I don't have distortion, or I have to try to back up down the hall with this big lens. And the lower light situation with the other lenses. So I'm having trouble not having this lens. But luckily for me, Sony came out, announced this April 2022, that it was coming out with a brand new 24-70 2.8 G Master version 2. And I'm like, yes, please. But it's a little expensive, I must say. So I have decided to rent it. There's a lot of exciting things about this that I'm just gonna go over the quick specs for you. You can look this up yourself too, but I thought I would give you a little bit of a reason why I'm so excited about this lens. This is not a minor upgrade, okay? This is huge. I've watched a lot of reviews online, but this is the first time you're probably seeing anything about this lens for pet photography. So I want to do a comparison, and this is a lot of the frustrations I had with the original. So the original, a small thing, the original had 9-blade aperture. This one has 11-blade aperture. So those bokeh, the out of focus areas are going to be rounder and more pleasing. That's a small thing. I'm not changing lenses for that. They both had 2.8. Now, Sony claims that this is more dust and moisture resistant, but I don't know. I'm not going to test that, but they do say that. But I haven't seen exactly how much, but that's really good to know because as pet photographers, we are out in the elements a lot of times. So we want that ability with these high-end pro lenses. There's a lot more buttons and knobs on this lens, which is really exciting as the video end of it goes. And this is what I've heard a lot of people talk about for video. Not only does it have the normal auto focus versus manual focus switch and the focus lock button, but it also has this smooth versus tight zoom. You're not gonna get a lens creep at all. And you can control how fast or slow. Here's tight, so you have to give a little bit more. So this is not gonna creep on you. And you can do a nice, slow, controlled zoom, good for video. But if you're out there just need to be fast, you can switch it to smooth and go in and out really quickly. So that's kind of an interesting button that I hadn't seen before, and I'm definitely gonna try that out. On top of that, they actually have the aperture ring right here, and you could do the click on or click off. And again, this is really great for film. So a lot more functionality in the buttons on the exterior of the lens. Now, one of the huge things, now this is a pretty, I think, hefty lens, especially compared to this one. So this lens, the new one, is 24.6 ounces. And it is also 87.8 by 119.9 millimeters. Okay, you don't need to memorize all that because I'm going to tell you what it is an 18% volume reduction. So we've got 24.5 ounces versus 31.25 ounces. Huge difference, okay? So the volume, because these lenses get heavy, and if I'm gonna put this on a gimbal, I don't want it to be that heavy. And also for stills, it's nice to have a little bit lighter, don't you think? Yeah. The other thing is the minimum focal distance, which I hadn't really considered until I was looking at the specs side by side. Minimum focusing for this one is 8.5 to almost 12 inches minimum focal distance. So you can get 3 more inches closer to your subject. And then the other thing, which I don't understand all the specs of, but I've heard it's a lot better autofocus. So the old Sony, I just thought was terrible autofocus. And since I rented that lens, I've seen a lot of reviews about that. It's just the version 1 was terrible autofocus. We're gonna test that this week too. And so like the old one, if you look at the specs for version 1, it says direct drive SSM, it's quiet and precise. That was what I could find on Sony's site, quiet and precise. Now, the new one, it says it has a 4XD linear motors and a floating focus, and it's fast, quiet, and precise. So the old one was just quiet and precise. This is fast, quiet, and precise. Exactly what we all want, right? If that dog is running around in front of you or running towards you even, you want it to be fast and sharp and precise, right? Okay, so those are the specs. That's the quick specs. So that's why I'm super excited about this lens possibly filling this space in my bag. Now, I have only rented this for a few days from BorrowLenses. This is not a sponsored bit. They don't even know I'm making this video, but BorrowLenses was really, really awesome. I had rented this lens and then I got ill for about a week and I had to cancel, and they'd already shipped it. And they said, no problem, we'll stop it mid-shipment, send it back and refund your money. And they did within like a day. And I was like, okay, BorrowLens is my go-to. So then when I felt better, I rented the lens again. So just a little shout out to BorrowLenses. Thank you so much for accommodating me when there was really no way at all I could use my rented lens. Now, I have a few sessions that we're going to take this lens on, okay? I'm going to give you some behind the scenes, real world pet photography shoots, okay, with this lens. So I'm going to let you know, as a pet photographer, should you upgrade or should you add this to your bag? And then we'll meet back here and I'm going to give you my closing thoughts. Should you get this lens as a pet photographer or not? Should I get it? Let's find out. There it is. There it is. There you go. Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Wait, darn it. Okay. This lens hood is super hokey, I must say. Okay, this room is really small. I've had to special make this PVC pipe background because I want to say it's like 7 feet wide by 10 feet long. And so this will be a great test
of the 24 to 70. Usually I have to either put my 17 to 28 on to close the door, or if I have my 70 to 200, I have to stand in the hallway right over there, which doesn't work very well because people have their pets right here. So let's see how this does. Okay, that worked out really good. We had one person with 2 dogs, one with a bigger dog that we did here on the floor, and I can close the door and I don't have to crop too heavily. And it worked fine with the lights, the trigger, really responsive. So I think that's a good test. Hi, Bae. You ready for this? Is it dark right here? So that's a 2.8, ISO 200, 1/200th of a second. Let's go ISO 1000. Well, it's not having any trouble. Wow, yeah, it's not having any trouble at all. Hi, are you a good girl? Yeah? Okay, come here. Whoa, that was magical. So now you're really facing that window. But this is kind of what someone's house would be like. So it's a bit dark, huh, Bae? It's a little dark, but you're doing it. Very good. Wow, I hate that I have to be 1000 ISO. That's a bummer. All right, now the darkest corner of the studio. You ready for this, Bae? I got a little treat for you, honey. Up. Yes. Hey. Oh, that was cute. I do this, right? Ooh, I don't have to edit. Ha. Yes, good girl, good girl. Okay, good job, honey. All right. Oh, I had to return the 24 to 70 lens to BorrowLenses because the time was up. Or else I'd have it sitting right here. I just got too busy and I had to return it. But just pretend that pretty lens is sitting right here with me. So here's my conclusion on the Sony 24 to 70 2.8 G Master version 2 lens that came out this spring, summer of 2022. I took it on 5 different photo sessions. 2 were dogs outside at cool locations. I think they actually both were at lakes. That's kind of cool. And I used them there. And I was not gentle. I use the lens just like I normally would. I'm laying all the way on the ground. I'm setting it over here. I'm handing it off to Frank. And, you know, I'm putting it through its normal paces. So those 2 sessions. I also took it to a headshot business portrait session at the veterinary office, and they have a very small space. So I got to use it in there with studio strobe. And I took it also here with my dog Bailey and my husband's daughter Emmy, and we did a whole session here in the studio, and I put it through its paces with my video light. It's a studio light that's pretty powerful, but not a flash. And then I also just took it to the park after it rained the other day to just get some flowers and try it out in an environment. I was kind of sort of hoping it would rain on us, but it didn't. So what is my conclusion after all of that? My huge concern was being able to use it in low light. So if I'm in a darker situation and I don't have a modeling light or some other light to get focus, that Tamron lens would not do it. So for that test, what I did was I put Bailey way in the back corner of the studio in the dark, and just to see if that lens would focus in the dark. And there was no hunting at all. And that lens doesn't make any noise either, just like it says in the specs. It is silent and precise. What was the other word they used? Silent, precise, and quiet. Absolutely. Some lenses you can hear that, and it didn't do that at all. Wait, right there, good girl. Good girl. Okay, this is the darkest corner. Oh my gosh, 1600 ISO. Now if I was to pop it down to 500, okay, this is really dark, but it's still finding her eye. So if I'm looking around, yep, wow. Okay, I'm impressed. That's good. So I was really happy with the one test that I did in the low light. The other tests, I was pretty well lit, so didn't get a lot of chances to use that, but I made sure to do that here in the studio, and it did great.
it did great. As far as what they say about it being improved dust and moisture resistant, I'm not so sure about that. Again, I had it at the lake, I had it on the ground. I mean, I was doing all the things I would normally do, but I didn't like take it out in snow or rain or anything like that. No dogs shook water off onto me. And my big concern with that is they can only do so much with the lenses that zoom on the exterior. So at some point you're gonna get something here that when you zoom it back in, it's gonna get under that, no matter what they do. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. I don't really know how to test the weather sealing, you know, it's just gonna have to happen over time. And honestly, I have Sony Pro support. And so when my lenses and camera bodies need help, I just send it to them. The quality of the images was amazing. I didn't do a bokeh test with the 11 aperture blades. I think it would be beautiful bokeh. So just as you'd expect with a high-end G Master Sony lens, image quality was amazing. So no complaints there at all. The weight was okay. It was a little heavier probably than I would have liked, but I get all the benefits of that heaviness with the, you know, the more glass and aperture. And so that's fine because it's 2.8 aperture all the way through, 24 all the way through 70. So there's not a variable aperture. So you're going to have more glass, right? So the weight was okay, and it fit in my bag just fine. I did not test this lens on my gimbal for any video work. I wish I'd had time for that, but I just simply ran out of time. So if I got that lens, I'd have to put it through its paces for the video end as well. As far as focus distance and just that focus range, oh man, being in the small veterinary exam room to do those photos, I didn't have to like step out in the hall, and I also didn't have to crop a bunch of it because it was too wide angle. Because right now I have the wide angle and the longer zoom. It was perfect for that situation in that small room to get one person and one or two of their pets for their business portraits. Really, really great in that studio situation. It was fine using strobes. It worked fine. When I'm here in the studio here, it was really great for here in the studio because it's not a huge space. I want to say it's about 18 to 20 feet from, you know, the cabinet to the backdrop. So you got to think the subject's closer and all that kind of stuff. So I could easily work within 10 feet of my subject, which is awesome. And on top of that, I could be closer to them, like focus distance. So sometimes with Bailey, she will jump off the bench or the stool to come get me because that's where the treat is. But if I could be, you know, within a couple of feet of her, she would stay in place. So that was really nice without having distortion. So I could be closer to the subject and get them the main thing in the frame and a little bit of the exterior and not be distorted. So with my 17 to 28 lens, it seemed like everything was always distorted because it's just kind of that wider angle lens. So that was a really nice benefit of having this 24 to 70, and it did really well. That short focus distance was amazing. When I was trying to get some flower photos, if you take those at all, it did wonderful for that. I'm doing a review on my Cattail Chronicles nature and wildlife photography channel. And when I was out there doing that, a crawdad snuck up on me and was within a few inches, and I got great pictures.
Holy crap. What the? Hello, where in the world did you come from? Dude.
So you really have this wonderful minimum focal distance, focal range too. Very nice. What else did I love about this lens? It actually really did great overall. It allayed some of my fears and problems that I had with the last version of this, and of course the Tamron. I didn't get to use all the buttons and knobs and dials. A lot of that is built in there for video work. So having the clickable aperture, a smoother zoom, they really put a lot of effort into some of that analog pieces on the lens for video work. So unfortunately I didn't get a chance to test that, but you probably don't need that either since you're here on the pet photography channel. But I think those would be really fun to play with. I did not like the lens hood. I think that can just go away. I would get a different lens hood, I think. the lens hood I thought was a little not so great. I think, yeah, overall, I would love to get that as my middle range lens. And I was just about to put the money out to get the upgraded 70 to 200 millimeter lens that I just love, but version 2 came out, and I might wait on version 2 just so I can have this mid-range lens. I've talked to a lot of you, and you really love your 24 to 70, and I'm outside so much that I was like, I can get away with my 70 to 200 all the time. But the more work I do in studios and small spaces, the more I realize I really need this mid-range lens. So I think that's going to be the next lens I purchase. I really did like it. Even having only used it on like 4 or 5 different shoots, it worked really well. I think I honestly put it through kind of its paces too. So I really like it. I would suggest it if you're looking for the mid-range lens. At this point, when I was looking online, you get the version 1 for only $300 less than version 2. So I would just save a couple more dollars and get the other one. Now, the bummer part about this lens that I hate to tell you is that it's, I think, fairly expensive. It is a G Master lens though, so you kind of expect that. So this version 2 lens is $2,300 US, $2,300. That's rough. That is hard to swallow. But I'm thinking that I'm running into enough walls with the equipment I have, and this is how I buy equipment, is I use what I have until I find its limitations and keep bumping against a wall. And I'm finding that. So I'm gonna have to get this mid-range lens sometime between now and I think the end of the year. Especially coming into winter, I tend to do more studio work. So besides the price tag and the external zoom and the lens hood, I think overall it worked really great. I was really happy with it. It just is a natural fit in my bag, and now I'm kind of sad that I had to send it back. I gotta say, I'm a little sad that it's gone now. Tears. But that is my review for pet photographers of the new Sony 24 to 70 2.8 G Master version 2 lens. So if you have any questions about it, type it below. I do tons of different tutorials and things on this channel, so if I do end up getting this lens, you will see it in future videos. So be sure that you're subscribed, you tap that like button, of course, and stick around and join us. We have a ton of fun here. Learn all about it. Yeah. All right, that's all I got for you today. As always, I wish you many woofs, purrs, and TREATSs.